Right now, you're likely running a corrupted piece of software.
Oh, almost definitely.
Yeah, and it's draining your battery, it's causing your internal system to crash, and while making your daily life feel like utter chaos.
Just completely overwhelming.
Right, you're putting out fires, you're reacting to every little ping and notification, just wondering how things got so incredibly messy. But here's the twist.
And it's a big one.
It is. The twist is that you are the one who wrote the bad code.
You're the programmer.
Exactly. And today, we are going on a deep dive into an incredibly precise manual for how to, hack your own system, locate those bugs, and rewrite your reality from the ground up.
It fundamentally shifts the entire paradigm of, of how we view our daily struggles. I mean, we spend the vast majority of our time feeling like victims of our circumstances,
Totally. Like we're just tossing and turning in the waves of a storm.
Right, but recognizing that you are the one actually generating the weather that changes the entire equation.
That brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking a really fascinating set of teachings that translates ancient Eastern philosophy into a framework that just makes perfect sense for anyone living in the digital age.
It's remarkably practical.
It really is. And this material comes from a specific session titled The Thrice Yearning and Chanting, which is produced by Buddhist Practice Incorporated in Australia.
Yeah, it's a fantastic source.
We'll be analyzing the insights of a speaker named Consultant Benny, who lays out this whole framework in response to some deeply pragmatic questions from a seeker of Buddhist teachings named Venerable Ivy.
And we should mention the session production comes to us via Notebook Ormum and Dawn.
Yes, absolutely.
The dynamic between Consultant Benny and Venerable Ivy is really what makes this source material so compelling to me.
How so?
Well, Venerable Ivy isn't just passively accepting abstract theories. She is asking the exact mechanical questions about human suffering that, anyone would ask when confronted with these massive concepts.
She forces the philosophical down to the practical.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So if we are going to learn how to rewrite the corrupted code of our lives, we first have to understand the hardware that this software is running on.
Right, the foundation.
The sources introduce this ancient Buddhist concept called Zanran.
Right, Zanran. It translates roughly to a state of unmoving, absolute clarity.
Like a blank slate.
Sort of. It represents the foundational nature of the mind before any external chaos, any software bug, or any stress gets introduced into the system.
To illustrate this, the text mentions historical figures like Sudampo.
Oh yeah, the poet.
Right, and he explored this idea of being completely unmoved by what they call the 8 winds.
The 8 winds are basically the forces that constantly push us around in life. Praise, ridicule, honor, disgrace, gain, loss, pleasure, and sorrow.
Just the daily roller coaster.
Exactly. And the classical analogy they used back then to describe a mind free from these winds was an ancient well.
An ancient well.
Yeah, so imagine looking down into a completely still ancient well. The water is perfectly calm without a single ripple.
Just glass.
Right. And because it possesses that absolute stillness, it reflects the sky or a passing bird or a storm cloud perfectly.
But it doesn't hold on to them.
Exactly. The water itself doesn't grasp onto the reflection of the cloud. It doesn't try to hold the bird. It simply reflects what is there and remains fundamentally unchanged.
But Consultant Benny points out that staring into ancient wells doesn't really resonate with a modern audience, right?
Not so much these days, no.
So he updates the analogy to something we all stare at every single day, a television or a movie screen.
The screen analogy is incredibly useful because it separates the chaotic events of our lives from our true underlying nature.
Right, so if you were sitting in a movie theater, the screen might be showing a raging apocalyptic fire.
Or a massive destructive flood.
Or some deeply chaotic, heart-wrenching interpersonal drama.
You're watching the birth and death of all these intense phenomena.
But the physical screen itself, it never gets burned by the cinematic fire.
No, it never gets wet from the digital flood.
The hardware never actually changes, no matter how dramatic the software gets.
Consultant Benny notes that the screen displays everything. It allows all these phenomena to exist and be experienced,
Yeah.
But its fundamental nature, what the text called the Dharma nature, remains perfectly clean and unmoving, just sitting right there in the middle of all the chaotic birth and death of the movie.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if I am sitting in that theater watching a terrifying horror movie, or if I get fired from my job in real life, my heart rate spikes.
Of course it does.
The panic I feel isn't just a projection, it feels viscerally, biologically real in my chest.
Oh, absolutely.
So are the sources suggesting that genuine human emotions and our reactions to real-life tragedies are just a glitch?
Well, that is a crucial distinction to make. Feeling the physiological or emotional response isn't the glitch.
It's not.
No. The glitch is forgetting you are the screen and
Mhm.
truly believing you are the character burning inside the fire.
Oh, so it's an issue of identification.
Precisely. Consultant Benny is highly specific about this. Getting totally lost in the illusion, like crying or screaming at the phenomena on the screen as if it were the ultimate solid reality, is described in the text as quite literally going crazy.
Wow. Going crazy.
Yeah, it is a fundamental misapprehension of the system's architecture. You're interacting with a projection as if it has physical substance.
So what's the alternative?
The wisdom they are pointing to is recognizing your true nature, that Zanran is the unmoving screen, and holding that dual awareness even while the disaster movie of your Tuesday afternoon is playing out.
Okay, but if the screen is perfectly calm and pristine, where is the disaster movie coming from?
Right, the projector has to be fed something.
Exactly, and the sources point out that we are the ones feeding it the script.
The movie is chaotic because we are the ones writing terrible, buggy code.
Right. They take the ancient concept of karma, which is so often misunderstood as, I don't know, some kind of cosmic payback system or divine punishment.
Which it totally isn't.
Yeah, and they translate it into this mechanical, modern equivalent, which is programming.
Viewing karma as programming is brilliant because it removes the moral judgment and replaces it with pure cause and effect. It is a strictly mechanical process.
So every single movement of your body, every word you speak, and every thought that crosses your mind is actively writing lines of code.
Every single one.
If you are listening to this on your commute right now, think about the person who just cut you off in traffic.
Oh, the worst.
Right. In this framework, your subsequent anger isn't an emotion happening to you. It is a line of code you are actively choosing to write, programming the environment and the experiences you are going to encounter tomorrow.
The reality you're experiencing today, your stress levels, your environment, the frustrating people around you, everything the sources call your dependent and proper retribution is the direct output of past programming.
And the text gives a highly specific detail to illustrate how deep this programming goes, right? Mentioning Earthstore Bodhisattva.
Yeah.
This is a revered figure known for pulling beings out of immense suffering. But the text says, even though this bodhisattva helps pull us out of the mess and offers blessings, our current state is still severely limited.
Severely limited.
Why? Because our karmic container is simply too small.
We artificially limited our own bandwidth. By repeatedly programming our minds with narrow, selfish, or angry code, we built a tiny container for joy.
So even if we get something great,
Even if immense happiness or peace is offered to us, our system literally cannot process it because the hardware constraints we built won't allow it.
so what does this all mean? How do we expand the container?
Right, how do we rewrite the code?
The sources introduce the solution found in the sutras, emphasizing a procedure called the non-dual Dharma door.
Non-dual simply means not falling into extremes. When trying to debug your life, you cannot fall into the extreme of thinking everything is completely empty and nothing matters.
But why bother trying to fix it?
Right. Nor can you fall into the other extreme of thinking the disaster movie is solidly real and unchangeable, leaving you helplessly trapped.
Okay, but if I download a bad app on my phone, the debugging is easy. I just hold my finger on the icon and hit delete. Gone.
If only it were that simple.
But if my career or my relationship is the bad app, how do I actually rewrite the code without just pretending the bad stuff doesn't exist? Like, how does someone practically execute this non-dual reprogramming on a random Wednesday?
To execute that, consultant Benny outlines 3 specific variables from the text that you basically must master.
Okay, what are they?
The cause, which is called yin, the condition, which is yin, and the effect, which is guo.
Let's elevate this from the traditional textbook analogy of like planting seeds and growing flowers.
Let's do the tech version.
Yeah, if we stick to the software ecosystem, how do yin, yuan, and guo actually function?
Okay, so think of yin, the cause, as your legacy code or your raw database.
The old stuff.
Right, these are the underlying habits and past karmic inputs you've accumulated over time. Got it.
Then the yuan, the condition, is the server environment, or the specific user interface that actually triggers that code to run.
And a guo.
The guo, the effect, is the final output, the system crash, or the smooth user experience.
Okay, so let's apply that to a real-world scenario. Let's say my yin, my legacy code, is a deep-seated tendency toward defensiveness.
Okay, very common.
And the yuan, the condition, is my boss sending me a slightly passive-aggressive email at 4:00 p.m.
Right. So the Guadi effect, under normal circumstances, is you firing back an equally passive-aggressive email, elevating your blood pressure, and just ruining your evening.
And I have just written more bad code.
Exactly. You've reinforced the loop.
But I can't go back in time and erase the legacy code of my defensiveness instantly. That yin is already there. So how do I intervene?
You intervene at the level of the condition, the yuan.
The server environment.
You cannot control that the email arrived, but you completely control the environment in which that raw data is processed. Okay, so how?
By pausing. By recognizing the defensive urge as just a line of code rather than an absolute reality.
Yeah.
And choosing to, walk away from the keyboard for 10 minutes, you alter the condition.
And when you alter the condition,
The old legacy code fails to execute. It can't run. So you generate a completely different effect, a new GUO. You have officially begun rewriting the software.
but that requires hyper-awareness, doesn't it?
Total hyper-awareness.
You have to realize your system is crashing, and you have to go in and fix the active bugs ruining your user experience in real time.
Right.
Which brings us to where the sources take a surprisingly aggressive approach.
Very aggressive.
Venerable Ivy asks about changing our fixed situations, and consultant Benny introduces an analogy regarding an apple tree.
Yeah, he says to imagine you are an apple tree and your bad karma means your tree is infested with poisonous bugs.
Poisonous bugs.
Yes. The text specifically names these bugs greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt.
The classic 5 poisons.
Exactly. And to save the tree, consultant Benny says you cannot just ignore the bugs. You cannot just meditate on how nice the tree used to be.
You have to use pesticide.
You have to use pesticide. And in this framework, the pesticide is the Dharma. It's the Buddhist wisdom.
This leads to a radical redefinition of what repentance actually means in this context.
It really does.
Normally, repentance implies going to someone saying, I'm really sorry I sent that passive-aggressive email, feeling guilty for an hour, and then basically making the exact same mistake the following week.
Right. But in our tech analogy, that is the equivalent of verbally apologizing to your laptop for downloading a virus.
Yeah, but refusing to run the antivirus software.
Exactly. The malware remains fully operational.
So consultant Benny argues that true repentance is actively spotting a greed bug or an anger bug in your mind and using the medicine of awakening to dissolve it instantly.
Instantly. And he uses incredibly forceful imagery here.
He does. He says when you see one of these bugs destroying your good karma, you must squash it, step on it, and never let it recover. You wipe it out.
Total extermination.
He goes so far as to say that coddling these bugs, like letting a little bit of righteous anger hang around because it feels justified, is self-destructive.
Yeah, he labels a person who does that as non-normal and actually accuses them of self-mutilation.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because that actually makes me a bit uncomfortable.
How?
So, well, when we usually hear about mindfulness or meditation, the instruction is, radical acceptance.
Right. Observe without judgment.
Yeah. You sit quietly, you watch your negative thoughts float by like clouds, and you say, I see you, anger. You coexist. But this sounds like violent, hardcore mental pest control.
It does.
It sounds exhausting, frankly, to be at war with your own brain 24/7. Why so aggressive? How does a person do that without burning out?
What's fascinating here is that consultant Benny's approach strips away the romanticized, sort of passive version of mindfulness and replaces it with urgent, pragmatic system maintenance.
Pragmatic. Okay.
As for the exhaustion, think about the alternative. You wouldn't peacefully coexist with a literal Trojan horse virus that is currently deleting your bank account routing numbers.
Well, no.
You wouldn't look at a termite eating the foundation of your living room and say, I acknowledge your presence, little termite. Let us mindfully share this space.
No, you would exterminate it immediately because it is bringing down the house.
Exactly. And the exhaustion of running that mental antivirus software only happens in the beginning.
Oh, it gets easier.
Yes. Once you consistently alter the conditions, the legacy code of those bugs stops executing. The debugging becomes automated.
So true repentance is not a one-time apology.
No, it is installing a hypervigilant firewall that catches the corrupted files the millisecond they attempt to execute.
To build a firewall that effective, though, requires a flawless understanding of how the entire network operates.
Absolutely flawless.
Which brings us to the boldest claim in these texts, the assertion that the Dharma isn't just a philosophy, but the ultimate evidence-based science.
They're completely elevating these teachings from the realm of abstract faith to the realm of rigorous, reproducible mechanics.
Venerable Ivy brings up Elon Musk, and the secular approach to technological advancement.
The trial and error method.
Right. You build a rocket, it blows up, you sift through the telemetry data to find out what went wrong, you tweak the design, and you try again.
But consultant Benny offers a really nuanced critique of that method.
What's his critique?
He argues that secular science requires endless, costly trial and error because its foundational understanding of the universe often misses the deeply hidden variables.
Specifically, he says secular science misses the hidden yuan, those microscopic conditions that connect a cause to an effect.
Exactly.
Right.
If you don't fully understand the server environment, you might input the data, get a system crash, and falsely blame the raw data instead of the underlying operating system.
So, consultant Benny posits that the Dharma perfectly maps out the entire ecosystem of reality.
It locks down every single condition from cause to effect without missing a single variable.
Making the results perfectly verifiable and reproducible every single time.
Without the need for the rocket to blow up first.
Right. And the sources describe bodhisattvas operating within this framework as essentially master debuggers.
Yes. To actually help a suffering person, a bodhisattva needs to know the exact nature of that person's corrupted code.
To find the precise, most acceptable point of intervention.
They need flawless diagnostic ability.
But wait, here is where I have to push back hard.
Okay, lay it on me.
The sources are comparing these ancient teachings to rigorous engineering, demanding strict evidence-based science.
Right.
Yet in the same breath, they explain that bodhisattvas achieve this diagnostic ability through what they call spiritual penetrations, which is detailed in texts like the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra.
Yes, spiritual penetrations.
That basically translates to supernatural abilities,
Yep.
superpowers.
It does sound like that.
How on earth do they reconcile rigorous empirical science with what sounds like pure mysticism?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it sounds contradictory at first, but within their framework, it is perfectly logical.
How so?
Because spiritual penetrations are not portrayed as magic tricks designed to dazzle an audience. They are advanced diagnostic tools.
How does a supernatural ability equate to a diagnostic tool?
Okay, consider a modern biologist.
Okay.
If a biologist looks at a drop of pond water through a highly advanced electron microscope and tells you there's an entire universe of complex organisms swimming around in there,
Right.
that claim would sound like pure mysticism to a person living 1,000 years ago who only has their naked eye.
Because the person 1,000 years ago literally lacks the sensory bandwidth to perceive it.
Exactly. The microscopic organisms are entirely real. They are an integral part of the cause and effect chain of that ecosystem. But they are completely invisible to normal human consciousness.
Oh.
The sources argue that spiritual penetrations are simply the mental equivalent of that electron microscope.
So it isn't magic, it is just a vastly higher resolution of data gathering.
A completely purified, deeply concentrated mind like that of a bodhisattva has the bandwidth to see the complete, unredacted data set of cause and condition.
They can perceive the subtle psychological and karmic variables that a regular, cluttered human mind simply cannot process.
And because they see the entire code base, they can apply the patch perfectly without trial and error.
This has been a profoundly perspective-shifting journey. Let's pull all of this together.
Let's do it.
Based on the insights from consultant Benny, Venerable Ivy, and the whole Australian production team, the ultimate takeaway is a complete inversion of how we view our struggles.
You are the unmoving screen. The chaos, the stress, and the fires of your daily life cannot fundamentally damage your true nature.
Yet you are also the lead developer of the movie playing on that screen.
Yes. Your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all active keystrokes.
By deeply understanding the mechanics of cause and condition, and by aggressively debugging your own mental habits with the antivirus software of wisdom, you have the power to entirely rewrite your reality.
You step out of the role of the victimized user, and you take control of the source code.
So we will leave you with this final thought to ponder as you step back into your day.
A little homework.
Yeah. If every single thought and reaction is a line of code dictating the user experience of your future, what exactly is the program you are writing in your head right now at this exact second?
That's a huge question.
And if you look closely at that code and realize you don't like the output it is going to generate, are you ready to hit delete?